5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
I said I would provide all the emails. We are providing all the emails. The fact that 3 years ago, some of them, not all of them, but some of them were not available. I never said I would provide you emails we didn't have.
I can't believe, talk about slippery. That IRS commissioner, if he were in your administration, what would you do?
Well, I would get rid of him.
Ed Rendell, Joe Scarborough, talking about the IRS commissioner and the way he handled himself during the most recent hearings. Joining us now, as mentioned, is Walter E. Williams. And Walter E. Williams, of course, syndicated columnist and Washington Examiner columnist and economist at George Mason University. Hello, sir. Great to talk to you again.
Good afternoon, Steve.
Always good to talk. All right, so let's start, first of all, with what we've been viewing over the past several days, and that's the testimony of the IRS commissioner. You've been around a long time, like a lot of us. Is this just one of the most outrageous scandals you've seen in quite a while?
Well, surely it's a scandal and it's criminal activity, but I think what's even more remarkable, and then nobody's talking about, how liberals, progressives, and Democrats are rushing to the aid of the IRS. I mean, they are defending these people, and they're defending the most. I guess the most brutal agency in our government, and the reason why they're defending it is because the IRS is an important part of the liberal agenda. That is to take money from some people and give it to others. And so, but I think that nobody is really focusing on the extent to which congressmen, a congressman out there apologizing to this guy.
Yeah, sorry, you don't have enough funding. You need more funding. Yeah. We cut your budget. You have how many employees to deal with? 90,000. Oh my God, how do you do it? Yeah, I know.
But the thing about it is, nobody is talking about how these Democrats and liberals and progressives are supporting one of the most feared agencies in our country. And what does this say about them?
Oh, that's a very good question. All right, I'm going to hopefully at the end have a little time to get to some of the Supreme Court decisions today. But your piece, I love talking about education with you, and I know it means so much to you. And your piece on the education establishment success, and I kind of teased it at the beginning, telling the folks, wait till you hear what the education system has succeeded in doing. And it is dumbing us all down, or dumbing down the students that pass through it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, dumbing down the nation so that we can fall easy prey to charlatans, quacks, and all these other people. And one of the rather remarkable things that Americans just don't know of, I point out the results of the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and which is sometimes called the nation's report card. And it tests students in 4th, 8th, and 12th grades periodically. And it turns out that really, this is really remarkable. 20% of 4th graders, 17% of 8th graders, 12% of 12th graders were not at grade level proficiency in American history. And you ask them questions. You ask them questions like, who was the president who dropped the atomic bomb, or what nations were we in war? We were fighting in World War II, and it turns out that one rather remarkable survey showed that American teenagers, they were able to identify the Three Stooges, Larry, Moe, and Curly, but they could not identify the branches of the federal government.
Well, I mean, that it's funny, but it's so sad. So sad.
And what the historian I'm trying to think of his
Arthur
name.
Schlesinger.
Yes, Schlesinger.
Yeah.
He wrote in Disuniting America that history is to a nation as memory is to the individual.
Yep.
That is, if an individual does not have his memory, he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know where he's going. That's the same thing with a nation. The history is our memory, and if we don't know anything about our history, we don't know anything about the founding principles of our nation. Well, then the average American, they fall prey to these charlatans. Matter of fact, the average American probably believes that Congress has a right to do anything upon which it can get a majority vote.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure you're right. But this is by design. We know that the teachers' unions and the left have taken over education, have had reins of education for many decades, and they come up with the curriculum, they come up with the textbooks. We know all that. So what is their purpose here? Is their purpose to make us welcoming of, as you put it, charlatans and quacks and all those kinds of people?
Well, I don't know whether they intend to do that, but it's the result. That is, if Americans can't think, and they think, for example, as I point out in the article, in the column, that if they think that mankind, that weather changes are a result of the activity of mankind, I mean, well, they can be told that,
right,
and they can't think because they would not know that 650 million years ago, ice covered the Earth from pole to pole. Matter of fact, they call it the snowball Earth. And evidently, ice does not cover the Earth from pole to pole, and so it must mean that there must have been some warming.
Yeah.
And I doubt whether it was done by SUVs or any
right. Well, you know what I always get a kick out of is when you're watching the weather forecast and they'll give you the record high, and the record high for the day is back in like 1930 or 1927. And I'm saying, well, how could it have been so hot back then? We didn't have all the CO2, all those cars emitting all the carbon and stuff. So it just the fallacies on so many levels. But you point out it's not just K through 12 or even college students. It's like 60% of adults don't know our history.
That's right. And matter of fact, I would say that a large percentage of the congressmen, they don't know our history. They do not understand. They do not know the Constitution. And matter of fact, I would think that most congressmen, and I'm sad to say that for most Americans, they have contempt for the American Constitution.
What about the president, Walter?
Well, he's kind of leading the fray. But these people, if they had to confront people like Jefferson and Madison, if Jefferson and Madison came back today and said the kind of things they said, such as charity is no legislative duty of government, the American people would run them out of town on the rail.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And of course, going back to Obama, and not only has he called our Constitution a flawed document, which we knew about, some of us knew about before he was elected the first time, he has since talked about the Constitution and the problems with it. And not too long ago, reportedly, he was lamenting the fact that it was a mistake. The Great Compromise was a mistake, that every state should have 2 senators. He wasn't happy about that because it was stopping his agenda.
That's absolutely right. But on the other hand, he ought to like the 17th Amendment, which made senators subject to popular election,
right,
thereby stripping power away from the states.
Yes, from the government. All right, so let's talk about quickly. There were a couple of Supreme Court decisions today, most notably 9-0. The recess appointment the president had made for the NLRB, 3 appointments. The Republicans said it was unconstitutional because it wasn't a recess. The lower courts agreed, and today 9-0 the Supreme Court weighs in. And this is not the first time there have been 9-0 decisions at the Supreme Court level or the appellate court level against this president when it comes to just outrageous, what some might view as attempts to grab power.
Yeah, well, it's just plain thuggery. And see, liberals, people who are liberals, people who are progressives, they ought to be just as concerned about the executive grab of power and the executive ignoring of the Constitution, because their guy is not going to be in there all the time.
Right.
That is, somebody else will come in and take the lead from Obama, and whether they're Republican, Libertarian, or whatever, and they will do things that the left doesn't like.
Well, absolutely right. Absolutely, just like the Senate when they changed the rules. Now, if the Republicans take over the Senate, guess what? They're going to have to live with those rule changes, Harry Reid and company.
That's absolutely right. And you know what? I think that Americans don't appreciate. There's one rule that I say, that that if you're going to have rules of the game, such as our Constitution, well, you want the kind of rules that whereby you'd be okay if your worst enemy was in charge.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when I was a kid. I was bigger than my sister. I would take an uneven share of the cake or whatever or the pie. And my mother said, "Look, okay, the person who cuts the pie, gets the second choice."
Yeah. That's good. That's a good one. Yeah, she was very, very smart. Very quickly here, before we let you go, this lawsuit that John Boehner is going to launch against the president, waste of time or a good idea?
Well, I don't know whether it's going to go anywhere, but I think that the Congress, the House of Representatives, ought to somehow show their displeasure with an executive that's just running roughshod over the United States Constitution, changing laws, changing the health care law, or changing immigration law, and changing all these other laws.
Welfare, you name it, yeah.
That's right. And when he takes the oath of office to faithfully uphold and defend the United States Constitution and administer the laws of the land.
Well, Walter, he's got another one coming on immigration because reportedly he's been meeting with HHS, and his spokesman says we're not going to wait for Congress to act on immigration. So it's many feel it's only a matter of a few days to a few weeks before he announces an executive order, and God knows what it'll include.
Well, Congress ought to get some courage because Congress holds the purse strings.
Yep, I agree. Walter, always a privilege to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Walter E. Williams, ladies and gentlemen. Check out walterewilliams.com. Also read the great Walter Williams at the Washington Examiner and in a newspaper near you, because he's syndicated all over this great land of ours. All right, when we come back, Rabbi Joseph Telushkin is going to talk to us about one of the most important, prominent rabbis in modern times and the legacy that he has left and the influence he has had on the Steve Molesberg Show.